Agenda session for the Chattanooga City Council. Can I get a motion on the minutes?
Second.
Thank you very much. Okay, everybody, let's take a look at our ordinances on final reading and on first reading for tonight. Please hit your light if you have any questions. We have several planning items up for approval. Okay, seeing no questions, let's move on to the resolutions portion of our agenda for this evening. We have council office resolutions, economic development resolutions, along with planning and police. Okay, I see no questions. Let's take a look now at next week's proposed agenda items. Week agenda. Anyone have any questions for the 2-week agenda? Our board is clear. Take a minute and move toward our purchasing recommendations for this evening. We have 4 purchases recommended for this evening, as well as 4 renewals and 1 sole source purchase. But the administration did make it known that they do intend to make a motion to ask us to make a motion to withdraw the first item up on the purchase recommendation related to custodial services for the Family Justice Center. Brooke, would you like to speak to that?
Nope, you beat me to it. But yes, we will request to withdraw the first one, and then the final 3 will be recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much,
you.
Brooke. We will move forward on that at the time. Okay, I still don't have any questions, so council, let's take a look at our future considerations, please. This is for 3 weeks and beyond. Many items on our future considerations. Is there anything that you all have questions about? Okay, seeing no lights, I have 3 questions. If we could, I would appreciate someone from the administration coming to speak to us about item 1F under economic development. This is an item, resolution authorizing the mayor to execute quitclaim deeds related to sale of previously delinquent tax sales. Richard, the reason that I asked a question about this, I understand that these are properties that have already been sold and now we're doing the paperwork on them. But part of our affordable housing action plan includes making a policy related to delinquent tax properties and thinking about how we move them into a land trust and clear their title so that they could be used for affordable housing. Can you please update us on where we stand?
I'm going to defer to Sydney, our housing policy director, who
Okay.
can help out with that, okay?
Thank you, Sydney. If you could update us on where we stand in making that policy and evaluating the back tax properties that we do have already in possession of the city.
Yeah, happily. We have an inventory of over 100 back tax properties that have been identified as potentially feasible for development. We've eliminated some of the sort of non-negotiables in terms of slope and other environmental features. So we are in the process of narrowing that down and creating an inventory to request from the county.
Okay. And where do we stand on making a policy for future delinquent tax properties?
So we have funding to maintain the properties that are in this inventory we're considering right now. We do not have funding to add on more. However, we're targeting about 100 properties, which is a pretty substantial amount. We'd like to start with this inventory and then consider the policy for the next ask.
Is there potential that once we move the 100 properties we have into a land trust and then get them sold to be developed, that would provide revenue to then take on new properties?
potentially. We would like to be able to leverage these properties for a range of uses, including affordable housing, which would be below market, but that's something we could explore.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
If council has any questions about that. I'm going to check in with council before I ask my next question. No? Okay, board remains clear. Item 6A, under it's information technology, item A, it's related to the application for a grant to the U.S. Department of Transportation for a SMART grant program to advance interoperability connectivity for this improving safety operations in the city. Ryan, I know that we have had some constituents and then people from outside of Chattanooga who have many questions about the word SMART and are fearful of the word SMART. So if you could please address this on record for what this SMART grant would be about, please.
Sure. So this is a grant specific, first of all, this is an application for a grant. We haven't received the grant funding yet. If we were to receive it, it would be specifically for putting onboard devices into emergency vehicles, CARTA buses, school buses, and city fleet vehicles, specifically around a targeted use case in some downtown intersections to create more green light traffic flow so that those emergency vehicles can have faster access to where they need to get, and so to where they can get, so that they can get to where they need to faster, and so that school buses can get to school on a more predictable amount of time. This is a $2 million fully funded federal grant. If we get it with no local match, it would be a phase one. If this prototype, it's a relatively small scale on the front end. If the prototype is successful, there's an opportunity for a larger $15 million second phase grant that could be expanded a little bit larger in the future. That's the focus. It is in partnership with UTC and Audi. So this isn't just the city of Chattanooga going it alone. Audi has run a similar program in Atlanta prior and found some positive benefits with the school bus signal alignment in terms of green light alignment and getting children to school on time, being able to get their breakfast before school, and so some positive benefits there. So we're excited about the possibilities of this grant application, but again, it's just an application. We've not been awarded the grant funds.
That's really interesting. I would go so far as to say that is not just smart, it is clever. And could really make traffic sort of interesting. We'll all know to follow slowly behind a school bus because we would have more access to green lights than if we try to get around.
Hopefully you don't follow the school bus too closely, yes. In this case, SMART stands for Strengthening Mobility and Revolutionizing Transportation. It's an acronym. Again, it's a federal grant through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
The board remains clear. We have no other questions. So I do have one final question for clarity related to item 10A1 under Parks, Public Works, and Wastewater. That's a resolution rescinding resolution number 25339, giving park rangers special police commission duties. I and some other council members have gotten emails from different people about what it is to be a park ranger versus, I believe, a park ambassador. Scott, could you please help us all fully understand what this resolution would change about this job or not change?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a cleanup. In 2001, which predates most of us here in this room, positions that were previously called rangers within the city were reclassified to be crew worker twos. Once they became crew worker twos, they no longer had law enforcement or were issuing citations or issuing anything like that. So now they're ambassadors. So their job is visitor contact, shaking hands, smiling, helping people get where they need to go. Risk management reviewed the positions and said, oh my gosh, we have folks that are wearing badges out there that could either A, put them potentially at risk if we're not training them to do that job, or B, give the citizens an idea that they may have coverage that they otherwise do not have. So the idea was to go ahead and clean that up and make them crew worker twos, as was reclassified in 2001.
Okay, all right. And so why is this being brought to us now?
It should have been done a long time ago, and
Okay.
this is a cleanup from risk management.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank
Do I
you.
have Any questions from council on any of those items? No, no comments either. Okay, all right, well, that finishes up our 3:30 agenda session. Before we move into our Parks and Public Works Committee with Councilman Hester, I would like to remind the council and the public that we will have an attorney-client meeting after this committee. Thank you. I will adjourn our 3:30 and move us to Parks and Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we accept the minutes? Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you read ordinance 5C, please?
An ordinance closing and abandoning an unopened right-of-way west of and parallel to the 700 to 900 block of South Greenwood Avenue, as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
See no hands. 7J, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Parks and Outdoors to apply for and if awarded, accept a one-time award from the United States Council of Mayors American Beverage Foundation for a Childhood Obesity Prevention, Environmental Health, and Sustainability Award in the amount of $175,000.
Thank you. K, please.
A resolution authorizing the appointment of Adam Salas as a special police officer unarmed for the City of Chattanooga and the Chattanooga Parking Authority to do special duty as prescribed herein, subject to certain conditions.
Thank you. Resolution 7E, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number Y-22-011-201 Hickson Community Center roof replacement to Porter Roofing Contractors, Inc. of Morrison, Tennessee, in the amount of $308,075, with a contingency in the amount of $30,000, for a total amount of $338,075.
Thank you. No hands. At this time, we have a presentation regarding Montague Park Master Plan. Scott.
Thank you very much, Chair. This will be fortunate for y'all because I'm not going to do the talking. I'm very fortunate to have our colleagues and partners here from the Montague Park project, and we want to brief council on that re-envisioning of that project. Pretty special deal. And following the Parks and Outdoors plan, where your directive to us was pretty simple. Fix what's broke first and find partners that are willing to help you do it. And this is how you do it. The plan that Eric's going to walk you through right now is a result of philanthropy. The philanthropists in this community have stepped up again and allowed us to bring in what I think, and I think Eric would agree, and our partners, probably the nation's best landscape architect firm, to take a look at our largest urban park and give it a new view. So Eric's going to run us through it, and before I can't help myself, I get excited and talk. We are only standing here today because some folks that are in the audience. And there are folks in this room that thought this would never happen, y'all. And I want to applaud the courage, the hope, and the belief that Crew Brock, Kim Adams, Tom Bartu, the Sculpture Fields, Mike Prater with our local Heidi Hefferlin Architects brought to this project that has flummoxed a lot of people. The only reason we're standing here with y'all today is they believe in Chattanooga and they believe in the future. So with that, I'll be quiet and let Eric step up and run us through what I think is the America South's next great garden park.
Thank you, Scott. Good afternoon, Council. Do we have a few slides? I would love to show a visual presentation if we have them. And I think this will advance. Again, I'm Eric Myers. I'm with Chattanooga Design Studio. It's good to be with you guys this afternoon. I'll take you through a lovely presentation of what we've been working on for the past year with Parks and Outdoors Department. And thank you for Scott for your leadership in this position. We would not be here if it were not for the generous support of the Benwood Foundation, the Lyndhurst Foundation, and the Bobby Stone Foundation, who all grant supported us to be able to do what you're going to see today. We really start here with a map that you've seen through the Parks and Outdoors plan. This was an area of our town identified in a red square, outlined in red here on this plan, which was produced by John Nolan in 1911, so over 100 years ago, identified as Woodland Park. It was park property. It was property owned by the Montague family. So Mary Thayer Montague donated the property just after this plan was produced in that time period. The park, as it sits today, and the site lies in a very interesting position, what I call the City Valley. The City Valley, is, as I know it, is between Missionary Ridge and the Tennessee River, and the Tennessee River really in North Georgia. It really sits in the center of that valley, and it plays a critical role in an environmental standpoint, from a people connectivity standpoint. What you see here in these circles that are on this map are really a 15-minute walk shed, so or a roll shed, 15-minute access point from many of the significant neighborhoods in that city valley. And so you can see how connected and how central Montague Park is in a central kind of parkway to this valley. We began with the initial part of this process, of course, investigating the current improvements to the site, how the site functions today, what are the improvements that have been made on the site in the past several years, and noted those conditions and their variance of either access that has very little exciting experience to some very wonderful views and vistas from this area and from this site that are magnificent. The overall goal of this process, and I have to remind everybody, was really to honor the two leaseholding groups that are on the site today, both Sculpture Fields and Chattanooga Football Club Foundation, and bring on to this site the thought of having a new market opportunity, whether it be a Main Street Farmers Market or another market. So the real opportunity here to have world-class art exhibit, youth sports, and food all on one site, all on 45 acres in the heart of our urban valley makes a lot of sense. And how that opportunity comes together really looks like this. We put together a world-class team. We, with the help of the folks that Scott mentioned earlier, with our steering committee, which involved the leaseholders and other members around the community, went through a selection process. We selected Reed Hildebrand, who then assembled this magnificent team that you see before you here, with Hillworks, with a brownfield. We'll tell you a little bit about what we learned about the brownfield and environmental conditions on the sites through David Hill and Hillworks, through Auburn University. HK Architects was a local architecture firm. Studio Ludo, who is a nationwide leader in active play and the design of active play environments across the nation. Sherwood Environmental Engineering, who is an incredible understanding, gives us an incredible understanding of the stormwater potential of the site. Over and under, you'll see a little bit about wayfinding and signage and how to identify the park and make it one umbrella civic spot and civic place. And then Stuart Lynn gave us a real time cost estimating, which we were available to talk to you about at the close of this presentation talk. It's lovely to say we're actually here. We've been making this presentation in different forms at each one of these stages throughout the community during this entire year. It's lovely to say that we're actually here. We can share these final findings with you. What the engagement looked like is a hallmark to really what I do for a living and what the Chattanooga Design Studio is all about. And we leaned into hundreds and hundreds of conversations with hundreds and hundreds of people about what the park meant in its history, what it means today in its present tense, and what it can mean in the future, and how to work with leaseholders to really put all of that into one space. We had public meetings, as you can see in the lower left-hand corner, at spaces like La Paz. They were wonderful to open up their space to us and allow us to talk over maps and receive input in that way. We met with, on the upper right, you can see we met with Pamela Henry, who's the late John Henry's wife, and to honor her voice and give her voice presence to the process. And then we had stakeholder groups ongoing throughout the process at various stages. At the early stage, just a listening process, all the way to the point that we are today. Again, to remind you of the principles of unifying this site, unifying the opportunity to have multiple venues and opportunities for people to get together in different ways on the site, reflecting the regional context that it sits in, It has rail context, it has industrial context, it has all kinds of environmental context that we all need to be honoring and thinking about as we walk into this process. And the opportunity to create enjoyment. It's 45 acres, again, right in the heart of our city. So how can we really, really make this a world-class place that's the best for our city? And so ultimately where we wound up is here, where you see the illustrative plan, and on the lower part of your screen is 23rd Street. 23rd Street is an east-west connector that connects Rossville Boulevard all the way to Dodds Avenue. On the northern side of the site is the Norfolk Southern Railway. You might know that as the dinner train that comes from Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum through this site. And then Polk Street is on the western side, or the left-hand side of your screen here. Really what we're trying to show you in this illustration, and you can see it diagrammed here on the left, are three major parts of this park. Part A, as you see in the top, is really sculpture fields enhancing to a sculpture garden with tree-lined pathways, positions for the sculpture to really be experienced in an outdoor gallery type of an exhibit with real attention to what are the rooms and the shapes of the rooms that accommodate the collection and opportunities for new expansion of the collection. Part C is what we're calling, what the design team is calling the heart. And that's a place for both of these uses and the activities on the site to really blend in a grove and a forested part of the site, where we really see this as an opportunity to add quite a few trees to the site that would create a lot of shade and a lot of opportunity for the site to have groves of trees in a place that we don't have in the urban valley. And then part B, as you can see, as we move to the south part of the site, is the large open lawn, or the Chattanooga Football Club Foundation fields. And you can see 3 fields positioned in that part of the site. We all need to level set as a community about the environmental conditions on the site. As we know, in the late 40s to the 50s, it was designated as a city dump. It was a wet area, and a lagoon was attempted to be made, and it was filled in with city debris. And that has been capped, and it's been verified by the Department of Environment and Conservation. The Hillworks team worked heavily with the Department of Environment and Conservation throughout this process to determine what can we do on this site? Can we plant trees? Typically, in my position as a designer, when we hear that there are environmental conditions and the site has been quote-unquote capped, we think of it as a clay cap that you can't plant on because roots damage that cap if they're blown over in high wind conditions, et cetera. That is not the case on this site. What we have is a separation cap. We have 36 inches of soil that is to keep every one of us here in this room separated from the potential of environmental contaminants below. Those potential contaminants have been lying now for several decades. They have been organically decomposing, and so the threat of those as we continue to move on is decreasing. The monitoring wells have been pulled, so those monitoring stations that were on the site in the late 2000s were pulled, and that tells you about the confidence of the environmental conditions on the site. It also tells you that the concern for leachates, where you might have concern about water getting into these contaminants and then leaching into Chattanooga Creek or other portions of our site, is not present, okay? And so that kind of level sets your understanding, I think, and hopefully about what we can do on the site and what are the opportunities that afford us as the environmental concerns face all of us, really. And it really puts us here, and this is really dynamic. I don't think that any one of us that got involved in this process early thought we could achieve something as grand, as magnificent as this because of that last slide. But it really gives us the opportunity to really experience 4, if not 400 experiences on this site. So these are the main 4 experiences that you're going to see in illustrated renderings of the portions of the park. From the upper left, the Polk Street edge, which we're considering an urban edge along Polk Street to kind of be a main entrance to the park. That's where all of the physical structures are going to be at the park. If you need to use the restroom is going to be there. If you want to have a swing, the swings are going to be in that location. I'll take you through that a little bit. On the upper right-hand side is a caption of, again, what I mentioned to you about sculpture fields, a sculpture garden. On the lower side is a caption of the heart that I mentioned to you, which is this grove or grotto of trees in the center of the site. That's this melding of those 2 activities. And the Chattanooga Football Club and their fields kind of look like this from an aerial shot. Again, you can see sculptures really positioned all through the entire 45 acres of the site. design team really led us through an opportunity to think about circulation intently. One of the interesting things that we all found out when we went there early was that this is an exercise area for a lot of our community today. You see moms with strollers, people out in exercise and fitness gear, doing what they do in the morning before the work or otherwise, and getting a workout and a walk-in. And so the designed loop that you see on the right-hand side of the screen in magenta color is about a 1 mile loop. And that's designed to kind of accommodate someone that might be doing a 2 mile a day walk. But there's also more thought into this about how we create a hierarchy of trails throughout the site that create a different set of unique experiences. And so while you might have that outer trail that is either asphalt or some kind of a decomposed stone material, you're going to have inner trails that are a little bit more primitive and a little bit more challenging, and tertiary paths that are a little bit smaller in nature and a little bit more intimate in scale to navigate. But then you also have overlook bridges that you can kind of see in the orange positions on the plan that will give connections to the mounds that you see on the site. So this mounding kind of design that John Henry put in place that's on the site today, where sculptures kind of sit on larger berms, if you will, these on the site will kind of increase, and those can be connected with pathways on top and with bridges that connect between the two landforms. We're thinking that the site could accommodate water and accommodate some stormwater relief to the district. We heard, as we did stakeholder meetings and we talked with hundreds of the abutters of the property owners that abut the park, we heard a lot about stormwater concerns and flooding issues on the site. And the flooding issues are prevalent across the west and the east of the site. We heard from the Tennessee State Armory Guard leadership that the historic buildings on their site are being compromised by the flooding issues. And so it behooves us to kind of think about how we maybe capture and think about strategies to capture stormwater on site and mitigate some of the flooding pressures that are happening downstream and away from us. And we learned a little bit about that. There's a lot more to go into. This is a master plan. This isn't the full engineering design, but we think some ravine cuts into this site would be very beneficial, both experientially and for the stormwater effects of the district. We know that planting is one of our largest opportunities, again, to mitigate the urban heat island effect of most of the urban valley. This is one of our key sites to be along to do that. And so increasing the tree canopy on site, both with tree-lined walkways and in the heart, is an incredible opportunity for us to do that and have some biodiversity in that tree species and those tree plantings on the site, on this 45 acres, is an opportunity on this site. So the ground cover, we also talked about with the design team, an early palette of landscape materials that both from large-scale plantings, trees, deciduous and otherwise, down to ground cover, all create that outdoor gallery room for the sculpture garden and for the football club, and give you that experience that allows you to have interest and availability every season that you visit the park, not just at one time. This plant palette has been really thoughtful and really thought through about, what is the true landscape nature of the South, and what are those plants that provide that either soft structure, that wispy nature, or the leaf structure that's waxy and a little bit more structured, that can provide your experience in your eye very, very interesting landscape background and backdrops to the rooms and the experiences that are on site. Also, plenty of attention given to the outdoor sculpture garden as an exhibit, as an outdoor exhibit, and the ways in which those rooms are shaped. So we think that there's plenty of opportunity along the pathways that we showed you, all of those types of different tertiary paths, to have sculpture along those paths, whether it be in naturalized areas or otherwise. We think there's places where you might have a small lawn setting with a little slope, and have an intimate outdoor gallery setting. And then there's places where we need to have monumental sculpture areas where great lawn or larger lawns accommodate that. And so I'm going to take you through a few renderings of what that looks like. And you can see some of those rooms even represented even in this rendering here on the left. These are actually current sculptures that are in the sculpture collection on the site today. And so you can see kind of the garden effect, but you can also see the outdoor gallery, I think, really exhibited in this rendering. We're calling this rendering the Great Lawn, which would include a very large sculpture band shell, could accommodate outdoor performances, or just act like Coolidge Park does, really, quite frankly, and accommodate anyone's own individual needs on a daily basis, whether it be throwing a frisbee or otherwise, but could be available for up to 2,000-person events. We've worked heavily with Crew and his team on how the football club and the Chattanooga Football Club Foundation can use this site on the southern edge for youth sports activities. And this is what that layout looks like. This is what spectator opportunities look like within those 3 fields that I showed you earlier. And some informal, some a little bit more formal, but primarily informal spectator options, right? So you're not going to see a bunch of bleachers on the site or formal benching or amphitheater type staging, but primarily informal seating. And the Polk Street edge that I mentioned to you earlier, I'll take you through a little bit of that, will be a primary edge for servicing the football club and the fields. This is what that looks like from an aerial. And you can see again here on the lower right, places and opportunities for public art and sculpture on this end of the site just as well. So it's not just thinking about public art being collected on one end, the north end of the site. We think that there's an opportunity to introduce all ages of play within the Heart. You think of the Heart being really sculpted and shaded, and the opportunity to have water and different opportunities for children of all ages to have different play segments. You think of those as outdoor rooms, one being the Glen, that's for very young kids, that's structured in a very natural way for young kids to kind of crawl on and play around with, or the Canyon, which is really probably for my children that would scramble on boulders and climbing stacks and otherwise, and be adept at doing that. But really, an opportunity for natural play to be at Heart in the Heart. And this is what the Heart could look like. It's a really interesting rendering of. You can kind of see in the background what I talked about earlier: the bridges connecting to larger landforms, the opportunity to bridge and go over and under and through on those pathways, how those pathways intersect and also become part of the experience of passing through play on the site. Let's go through the Polk Street Edge. Polk Street Edge is probably the most urban connector to this, what would be a very natural park and a very woodland experience to visit. Most of the Polk Street Edge, as HK is designed here, as you see, is thought of as pavilion structures with long shade structures accommodating them, and the programming, if you will, or things that are inside of buildings sit up underneath of those. I'll take you through what that looks like in plan. In this rendering, I think it's kind of great to see that what you see is a Riverwalk type of multi-use shared path here running past the programming, a planted edge that can accommodate market stalls. You might see tents in between each one of those trees that's right next to parking. We think that it'd be wonderful to have angled parking all along Polk Street, the whole length of Polk Street, to where farmers could show up. We talked with a lot of market vendors that say, we just have to have the parking and the tent very close by so we can put our goods there. And then everyone, all the public could use that shared use path to access the market stalls. So it's been thought of as a market street, if you will, but it's an urban edge that's also a gateway into Montague Park itself. So in plan, on the far right-hand side of your screen right now is 23rd Street. On the left-hand side is to the north towards Main Street. In plan, this is what we think all of those front porch and 3 primary outdoor rooms, breaking down that Polk Street edge into outdoor rooms that really accommodate or relate to the primary activities in the park that I mentioned to you earlier. So the outdoor living room really is thought of as being relationship to the sculpture fields part of the site, and the main entrance or the community hub is entering into the heart of Montague Park, and then the recreation spectator zone that you see on the far right is really related to the football club. And so with that, we think that we've got a magnificent master plan in place. We think that we're at a great place to share this even more publicly and get more input, and can't wait to hear from you today and answer any questions that you have. Thank you for your time.
Do we have any questions? Councilman Darren Left.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Eric, you said something at the end, we would talk about cost. Did you cover that yet?
Do you want to do it?
Sure, I'll jump into cost. Preliminary estimates right now look at about the $80 million price tag with an inflator put in. We right now are going to work on our capital stacks to see how that would be stacked out and how phasing would work.
Number two, Eric, you talked about building in some ravines maybe for stormwater management. How does that coincide with the land being capped?
That's a great question. So the design team looked at that heavily. They talked with Troy Keith at TDEC about this. So the strategy would be, first and foremost, we would have to test this idea before it made it past the master planning stage. And what I mean by that is dig a pit and see exactly what the condition is. But we believe that if there are contaminants, those contaminants can be moved so long as they stay on site and become part of another mounding opportunity that's on the site. And so you can see a lot of earth moving and earth positioning, earth changes on the site. And so those contaminants might find themselves repositioned on the site, and that ravine could be capped again. So most of those ravines are in the 7 to 10 foot range. And so we think there's opportunity to take the 3 foot of input soil, right, and move it across the site. And so it's trying to keep those balance of soils on the site, keep the contaminants on Montague Park site, but use that ravine to accommodate stormwater.
Can you talk a little bit more about the term capped? Because when we talk about brownfields, and we have our share of them, the public hears that word a lot, and we don't really understand it. Oh, you can't do that. Well, it's been capped. Oh, well, it's okay now. So we hear that term a lot. Can you kind of expand on that to address some of the areas that are a little unsavory for us?
Yeah, and Eric,
we're trying to develop all over town.
Yeah, you got 2 state school grads up here, so we'll do our best. The key with cap is it's the type of material that's below. There are various degrees of fill, there are various degrees of contaminants you want to contain. And then the depth is, are they permeable? Does it let water in? Does it not let water in? Does it let methane out? And I don't want to speak on behalf of the experts. We had Auburn University's Brownfields team in, and what they said, and I hope I'm generalizing, if they're listening, they'll correct me and I'll feel my phone go off. There are areas of the site that actually have not been impacted. In fact, most of the site has not been impacted by fill. There are hot spots located within the site that they have identified that we can't touch, but we have a lot of freedom on the areas around that. So it's not one big giant brownfield by itself. It has hot spots in it that we'd work around.
Okay, but there's no public safety concern.
Oh gosh, no, you couldn't dare do that. No, the neat thing is,
good to hear on record.
Yeah, the neat thing is in Chattanooga, we've mastered this because Renaissance Park was state of the art, and we learned so much when those hills were made and the creek was dug out. We've actually created some of that technology here, so it's kind of bringing it back home.
So last question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity. So let's say it's built. What is the plan for maintenance and sustainability and keeping? Because, I know our public works crews are probably not too excited to see a plan where they have to go in and maintain this. So I'm sure there's something else you have in mind.
Yeah, and I'm glad you framed it that way. Look at that park, y'all. That's a garden. Mm-hmm. And you don't get to Piedmont Park, Atlanta. You don't get to Central Park, New York with Public Works mowing and blowing. Mm-hmm. This is going to require a level of care and a level of investment like you see us do at Coolidge Park, like you see us do at Riverfront Parks. This is the first time we would deploy that outside the Riverfront Park systems through our park staff, but it absolutely would require additional care. The other neat thing is I have partners in the room. Crew is, you can't stop his team from programming youth sports and their love for the kids of that neighborhood, be it football, rugby, soccer, whatever they're running, they're going to program that. Sculpture fields, I don't know if any of y'all were out there Saturday night, 10,000 people, I think, would be a fair guess. I mean, it was a lot. They'll be our programmers and our activators, so we'll specialize with our city resources on, and by the way, it's all free park, always be free to enter. Yeah. The stuff that any citizen can enjoy, and then we have great programmers out there who will program it and activate it.
That's all I have for the moment.
You good? Okay.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Chairwoman Hill.
Thank you. Certainly, this is a very exciting plan. I mean, as I see it, I start to feel like St. Louis, you know, the zoo with all the mature trees and other really engaging parks that I've had the privilege to be in at different points in my life. I love the fact that this has as many trees in the plan as it does, just knowing how much we've got to protect our tree canopy and grow a new canopy as so many of our trees age out. I also noticed, and Eric, you didn't touch on it, but I was pretty excited by the idea of the pedestrian and bike infrastructure headed into and out of the park on either side, just the way that that's going to connect those urban neighborhoods more safely through the city and engage with the park. Scott, I want to drill back into the maintenance question. Something that we've learned with our city art is that when a piece of art is donated, there has to be money alongside that for long-term maintenance of that piece of art. And so as you think about your fundraising and capital stack for this, how do you see that budget shaping up? Like if you get a $50 million commitment, does 10% of that automatically go into a maintenance endowment for this, or how might that work?
I don't know yet, except to say everything is on the table.
Okay.
And the beautiful thing is, because of the trust relationship, Sculpture Fields has a world-class collection that sits out there. We have to honor and make sure that collection is stewarded and protected and held up, because it's only increasing in value in each year as well. So that'll be in the stack as well.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the work that the team has done, for the community commitment to this idea, the support for bringing these ideas to Chattanooga. Very exciting project. So look forward to seeing how it progresses. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Up next, Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two things. First, Eric, thank you for the presentation. Sat through a lot of these, specifically around parks, and you can tell the influence and the new focus the administration and staff have for parks, because this is probably the most comprehensive and complete plan I've ever seen presented in parks, so thank you for that. I do appreciate it. It's also the biggest price tag I've ever seen for parks too, so obviously those things go hand in hand sometimes. Scott, in looking this over, I got to ask the question I know that you don't like to hear and some don't, and especially when we're talking about parks. I appreciate the connectivity. That's all great, but I'm not riding my bike here. So when I want to go and enjoy this, or when any of my constituents want to go and enjoy this asset in our city, what considerations are given to parking?
Yeah.
The surfaces we like less.
Yep, no, and none of us, you're absolutely, none of us get in this business to build parking lots, do we? The upshot, and if you can see my laser pointer, it's not helping you at all,
We
of
can't
course,
help.
but what we've
Let me lean
done
over. Okay.
is Polk Street is entirely activated for parallel parking,
So
not
it's
45-degree
parallel.
angle. So we pick up, you know, the brilliance of this design, I want to give Reed Hildebrand all the credit. No, there's no parking in the park, so it
Right.
feels like, wow, it's a whole new site. Well, they found the parking. You pick up 350-plus spots up and down Polk, which is more than we
Okay.
have right now.
Awesome.
And it's just an over-wide street, so it's kind of dead space without it. It's also the stormwater solution as well. And then I hope you notice, y'all, we're being in, look, it's planned for success time. You know, the best time to build this park was 1911 when Nolan first prescribed it. I think our second best time is today. You see these buildings. We want to be intentional about leaning forward and saying the neighborhood we know today is not the neighborhood that's going to be there in 2070. This park aims to shift that way, and Councilwoman Hill brought it up. Those green paths that are connections right now are going to connect to a whole bunch of neighborhoods and make it more easy to get to for more folks that are going to come to Chattanooga and want to live this great quality of life we all enjoy.
So the follow-up to that I have is still kind of centered around the parking and use. You know, I see 3 fields that are multi-use fields. You know, you have opportunity for tournaments, things like that, for activation. It's not just, you know, a game here and there. There's great opportunity. Even 350 can't come close to supporting that. So are there thoughts maybe moving forward as some of these adjoining businesses, parking lots, you know, being able to partner with them on the weekends kind of thing to be able to utilize that space to get people down there?
Absolutely are, and we've been very fortunate. The Armory has reached out to us and said, we have a lot of dead parking spots we don't use. We'd love to partner with y'all to activate those spaces when we're not using it for drill weekends. So there are the opportunities. And there's a great grid street network all around this. This is the old grid. You can put that grid to work. We had, again, 10,000 people there on Saturday night that were quite comfortable walking into that park site.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a little anxious too, but we're trying to be as protective as we can of both.
Understood.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you both.
Good, Councilman? Next, we have Councilwoman Burris.
So you hit a home run again. So you know what's really exciting for both of you? This weekend, there was a big event downtown with the car show and everything, and people were in from all over Europe, all over the world, and they were commenting on the greenness of Chattanooga, and which opened the door for me to give my lecture on a city within a park, you know, and that really, I'm quoting you, I mean, to you the glory, what can I tell you? And this is just another example of that. Guys, you've done a fabulous job. Crew, you haven't held anything back. And when you do a project like this, you don't look at the money first. You look at what's the best practice, what's what we want for Chattanooga, and then you figure out how to fund it, and it will get funded. And this is a class act, so thank you very, very much.
You good?
Oh, I'm very good.
Councilwoman,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to say that this is in District 8.
Yes.
Yay for District 8. Come on now, District 8 is going to be the great District 8, but it's getting ready to be really fabulous. Yes, so thank you for all you do. And Eric, you know, I appreciate you a lot. You know, you are doing an amazing job in Historic Orchard Knob too. So y'all are gonna have to come through Historic Orchard Knob and see the things that signage, greenery and stuff that's being placed at Historic Orchard Knob. So thank you all for all that. I am so grateful to see that this is all happening in an area that definitely needed some tender love and care, and it's going to be beneficial to everyone. So grateful. Thank you.
Good. Eric, Scott, the crew, thank you for that. A unifying vision for Montague Park. Actually, it's a unified vision for the city of Chattanooga, bringing folks from various economic status together. That's wonderful. A one Chattanooga. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Parks and Public Works, keep up the good work. At this time, we're going to adjourn to 6 o'clock.